Well, I don't have any new technology really to show. This is a use case in a very specific field of the information security in DHS. So I think that's really the important part of what I'm going to show, that it actually is in use in this kind of field. So my company, WeKnow, or it's not my company, but the company I work for, WeKnow, was tapped on the shoulder by this guy in the DHS called Rod Beckstrom, and he had 6 agencies that were performing work on cybersecurity, and none of them were talking to each other. None of them were sharing data, and when they did share data, it was done terribly. Someone wouldn't make a report, send it out. A few months later, they would send it back to them and say, hey, you should look at this. I found something really cool. And so we needed one place for everyone to go to contribute this data, which is, of course, why we chose MediaWiki and Semantic MediaWiki. The start of this project is when I first learned about Semantic MediaWiki. And the data...
February, 2 years ago?
Oh, that was a year and a half ago. The reason that we chose this was it was very data-centric, so of course Semantic MediaWiki does that very well. And as you said, you need to paint a pretty picture for the government. So there it is. Picture. With few.
Yeah, I'm celebrating.
We borrow your...
A little bit of flash, baby.
Oh, it's not Flash.
No, like
Lowercase.
sizzle.
Yeah. So the basic idea is to capture incident data as it happens in the federal networks, as well as vulnerability information, which the US CERT already captures, so we didn't need to duplicate that data. We're just drawing that in using their XML feeds. And to have a place for forensics files and research to be placed, and then link them across that, which they weren't able to do because each team was performing that function in itself. So it's the basic stuff here, SRF, making some pretty pictures there. And normal queries, things like that. I wrote, that's okay. The ontology, or the framework that we developed for this was a mix mash of all the agencies' separate frameworks, because they were all using something different. We had to make a more generic, overreaching framework to connect all of them and have a common vocabulary so they could actually talk to each other. And then, of course, fill in the detailed information in free text. And the idea is to take whatever is common in free text and put it into the framework so it evolves. I guess you can see that secret tag at the top. We dealt with classification, with treating the data as being all in one classification, and the extra input on the bottom in the free text, that's where the classification changes. So we kind of skipped over making a semantic solution to that. And so add individual page saves, which is form-based. We have, I didn't change anything to default. Let me do that again. Oh, because I'm already secret. It's specified as secret, and there's no higher one on our system, so it's not asking me. So let me try a different one. Do that a little better. This is all demo data. It's not the real data because that's on SuperNet. There. The idea is we have 3 separate layers unclassified, confidential, and secret. Once you go up, can't go back down, and it puts the headers across the article. And that was sufficient for our requirements within the government. And that worked out all right for that. The hardest parts with getting something like this in a CIFRNet environment is convincing people that the security is enough. We're actually not using any internal security for Semantic MediaWiki or MediaWiki, where it's inside a big perimeter. And so we're using their own protections to perform protections for this. And the other thing is single sign-on, or having a central repository for authentication. Because we're connecting different agencies, there isn't one thing that they use. Some people use CAT cards, some people use DoD CAT cards, DHS CAT cards. There's some people that have LDAP, some people have AD, but they don't all use the same thing. So we abandoned that as well, made it simpler, and just said, if you can access this network, then you just make a local account, and then you're done. And I guess the real message that I've learned from this is the simpler in this environment you keep this, the easier it is to put it in, and the more likely it's to be adopted. Because people in the government, they want to be able to do their job. There are security analysts, and they're working on important things for that. They don't want to have to learn this. So they want a simple interface that can find their information. They're not really interested in building ontologies or adding properties or anything like that. So we just needed to make a slick interface, make it quick, make it accessible, and really add the value, which is where the Semantic MediaWiki comes from. And a little demo of that. The one thing that we didn't have before this was attribution of data whenever they shared. It had a title on top of the file name or something like that, but then once you're in it, you strip out the information and it's gone. So here we can consume it, and it has attribution. So we know where it came from, who to talk to about this, how to get in contact with them, and that's all stuff that I'm sure other wikis use, the person template. And we have agency hierarchies and things like that built into it. The government uses different category types that they have defined. I think it's NIST that defines it. And so we can go into that and see definitions and see aggregations, that kind of way of viewing things. And top the related information, and that's how we're going breadth-wise, not just hierarchically. Of course, that one doesn't exist. So we'll click on forensics. So this will send us to the forensics file that's supporting the information inside the incident article. And in this, we have the link back, and we have counters and all these things that they like. And so that, you know, analysts can easily find more information about that as they're hunting down and trying to figure these things out. So the vulnerabilities here, it's being pulled directly from the US CERT. They have an NVD, National Vulnerability Database, and that's where they publish all their vulnerability information that they come up with. They're using the MITRE stuff with the CVE and CWE, so that's all categorized by that, which makes it very easy to use and like this. And this is, of course, in a demo version. It's an ongoing project, so the next step is to make all the cool reports and things. And I had a demo, and unfortunately it is sitting under my desk and it is broken. So I have to just show you a slide, which doesn't suffice, but that'll work. This is another attempt with a Varus framework, which is Verizon has a business unit for incident classification and response, and they released a framework called the Varus framework, Verizon Incident Sharing. It's a really big framework, and so I built a tool with Semantic MediaWiki to exploit it, and that's what it looks like. And anyway, there's the charts and things. So every year, Verizon puts out this DBIR, this Data Breach Incident Report, and it pulls in all this really great data. They have agreements with different organizations, such as Secret Service, and they pull the information from their business unit that does response to incidents. They gather all this information and they make really good metrics about it, and it gets a lot of visibility. So I made this tool and called them up and said they should look at it. And the thing here is that this is one section of their DBIR, but it's in the wiki, it's with live data, it's updated constantly, so you don't have to wait every year to have a DBIR. You have one all the time that's always up to date with information that's put in from the community. So that's, I think that both in the government and in the private sector, at least in this section, people are really seeing the value of Semantic MediaWiki. And I think based on the conversations that I've had and my colleagues have had with those people, that there's been a lot of talk about opening up data and using these open source frameworks and tools and all this stuff, but nothing's happened. But I think that more and more people are talking about it now, and that very soon it's going to start vastly expanding. And I think that Semantic MediaWiki has a huge part in that, just because of the advancement of its particular tool sets with data. And I think that Semantic MediaWiki will see a lot more involvement in those spaces as it moves forward. So that's just what I want to share with you all. Any questions?
Well, I just want to briefly, looking back on those tables, I'm still struck by how cool everything was. I seem to recall it was you who wrote on the mailing list asking about how to do alternating colors within tables.
Yeah, we figured it out.
Yeah, which is yeah, which is cool.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd like to know, you said you had some data in XML format. Do you load it into the wiki as annotation, or how do you access this data?
Because they already have the database, we didn't want to just copy it over. It is actually in this one copied over so that we can, I believe we used data transfer that you made, and we mapped, because we can see their framework, their XML markup, we can just take their property names or whatever XML calls it, map it to a property name here, and dump it in. We have to run it every now and again, or I kind of cobbled together a way to, if you put in a new CVE that doesn't exist in the system, then it will go pull it and populate the page. So that was a good way to not duplicate too much data, but still have it searchable. But the real goal would be to, because we are inside the government, to have the backdoor to the US CERT database and have an RDF store to the query. And that's where we're going next. One of the next iterations is to have RDF store with all this stuff in there, so that we can have endpoints and do all that stuff.
Question? Are your end users assembling queries? Do they query the system apart
No.
from just typing in a use the search interface?
At this point, they're not. It's a small group of users right now because it's in the demo form, so they're starting small, of course.
Yeah.
But right now, they're putting the data in and they're seeing what it looks like and getting the correlations across the categories. So that's what they're doing right now. I believe the tools that we'll need in order for them to start doing queries, because they're not going to write ASK queries. We need the query interface, or we need the run query, and that's the next step to make custom reports and things like that. the way that a lot of this works currently is that there's a set report that they want to make out of their data. So we're working with them to use the wiki to make those reports for them, which is inherently better than a PDF that they pass around now by email. And